Korea and Thailand, another major Asian economy, is on the brink of falling into recession. Reports say that Asia's second largest economy is set to declare a recession after 71 straight months of growth. Ending an economic expansion that lasted for 71 months, the Cabinet Office of Japan is set to announce that the country has entered a recession. This follows the absence of any signs of economic recovery in one of Asia's largest manufacturing hubs. The industrial output in Japan was down nearly 8.5% in the month of May from the previous month, to mark a fourth straight month of declines, underscoring the pain inflicted by the novel coronavirus on factory activity. Data also showed retail sales in Japan tumbling at a double-digit pace for the second straight month in May, as the pandemic and lockdown measures delivered a heavy blow to consumer confidence. The world's third largest economy and the second largest auto supplier, Japan has suffered due to the weak global appetite for cars and slowing business spending. Weak business with China and other major trading partners has dashed further hopes of Japanese companies showing relief. The outbreak has dented demand for Japanese products globally. Exports have been falling. Japan's exports fell in the month of May at its fastest pace since the year 2009, during the period of the global financial crisis. And now we have our correspondent Grace Lee joining us live from Tokyo for more on that big story that we're tracking. Grace, talk to us. Japan has multiple issues to face at this point in time. It's just exactly a year away from its Olympic commitment, which was postponed by a year at the stage. And at this stage is when it is set to declare that it is officially in a recession.
Yeah, overall, the outlook isn't great for Japan, and the pandemic just came at a very bad time for the country. The economy was already hurt by the government raising the consumption tax to 10% late last year. We also saw Japan suffering from the sidelines of the U.S.-China trade war. There were multiple natural disasters that also hurt the economy, and now with this pandemic, we are seeing Japan suffering quite a bit. At the same time, the Olympics has been a huge hit for them in their pockets as well. We saw that Japan spent billions of dollars to try and get the ball rolling. Now that it's pushed back, that's going to cost them another $2 to $6 billion. And Tokyo's Olympic chief has warned that if they cancel the Olympics altogether, which is a possibility, he says, if they don't find a vaccine for COVID-19 in time for the Olympics next year, that may cost Japan double what it spent already. So all in all, it seems that Japan is really struggling, and it's not clear how they're going to get out of this rut. We did see Japan's economy kind of picking up in the last 2 months, a little bit of a glimmer of hope of recovery as we saw the state of emergency lifted and we saw people returning to restaurants, returning to work. But now we're seeing another wave of coronavirus, record numbers here in Tokyo and across Japan in the past few weeks, and that's definitely going to have an impact on the economy as well.
Right, and if the situation does not come under control, Grace, then that postponed Olympics too is under threat. And if the Olympics gets cancelled for any particular reason, then Japan's economic problems could just compound.
Absolutely, and that's something that Japan's economy is Japan's government is really fighting hard against. They really do want to push ahead with the Olympics. In the past few days, they've announced that they've secured the venues and the dates for 2021. But like I said, Tokyo's Olympic chief does sound a little bit cautious. He says that at the current point that we are in for COVID-19, he doesn't see the games really happening next year if we're at the same point. But of course, they are pushing ahead nonetheless. And Japan Japan's Olympic Committee are desperately coming up with ideas to try and make the games a little bit more COVID friendly. For example, they're trying to figure out ways to make it so that there are less people coming to Japan for the games. They're trying to find ways to make social distancing a lot easier for the athletes. And overall, they're just going to go ahead with the Olympics with a lot less glitz and glamour if they are to go ahead with the Olympics next year. So we'll see a very different Olympics. One thing to point out, though, is that they say that they will not hold an Olympics without spectators. They say that's against the kind of overall feeling of the Olympics. They do want to hold at least that one tradition in place if they do go ahead with it next year.
Grace, talking about Japan's economy, which is officially in a recession, help us understand what's the kind of stimulus measures that have been taken by the Japanese government and how effective or not they've been so far.
Yeah, the Japanese economy is hit pretty hard right now. The government has announced multiple stimulus packages in historic numbers to try and get the economy rolling again. One big measure that they did put in place this week is the Go To Travel campaign, which encourages domestic travelers to go travel within the country. Now, there was a lot of controversy over this measure, with a lot of experts saying now is not the time to encourage domestic traveling, because when we saw domestic travel restrictions lifted in early June, we saw since then COVID-19 numbers increased by tenfold. So they're worried that we're going to continue to see this climb of COVID-19 cases if the Japanese government continue to push for domestic travel. At the same time, Tokyo is under a red alert now, the highest level of alert for COVID-19. That's why the government at the last minute decided to exclude Tokyo from that campaign as well. That drew a lot of anger and criticism from Tokyo residents. So all in all, it seems like the government is trying to find ways to fill the holes, especially with the big travel ban that's in place right now. Foreign residents and foreign travelers are not allowed to come into Japan, and that's turned down their foreign visitor rate by about 99% for this time of year. So they are trying to encourage domestic traveling, but so far it's not going well.
Grace Lee joining us with that live ground report straight from Japan's capital, Tokyo. Thank you, Grace, for being with us here on the broadcast.